The 40th anniversary of the Wahine sinking has been marked by memories and tears. 53 people died as a result of the disaster, which happened when the inter-island ferry was caught in a ferocious storm near the entrance to Wellington Harbour. In a moment, we'll find out if a Wahine tragedy could happen again. But first, we're joined live by Stephen Parker from Seatoun. Stephen.
Yes, well, of course, the weather's been a complete contrast today compared to the Wahine storm. I'm down at Seatoun Beach, and just behind me is Steeple Rock, and this is pretty much the area where the Wahine came to rest. And this, of course, has been the area where much of the commemoration has been held, and also on the other side of the harbour where so many lives were lost and so many bodies were found. In the Wahine Day tragedy, this was the coastline where most lives were claimed. Many survivors and family of victims gathered here along Wellington Harbour's eastern shore to pay tribute, because here on this isolated spot, the combination of cold, crashing waves and sharp rocks left the shorefront littered with the dead and dying.
I just remember looking around and there were just dead bodies everywhere, and I couldn't see anyone else that was alive. But I looked at myself and I had a few broken fingernails, but I couldn't see anyone else that was living, and they were terribly smashed, terribly.
The Wahine was caught by Cyclone Giselle as it entered the harbour. She struck Barrett's Reef and foundered off Seatoun, creating New Zealand's biggest modern-day maritime disaster, a death toll of 54, although nearly 700 survived.
It was the first lifeboat to reach the shore on Seatoun Beach.
The 40th anniversary was marked with a series of events, including another link added to the ship's anchor chain in a park in Seatoun. For some survivors, this was the first anniversary they've attended. Many traumatic stories have been kept private.
It was very hard. That was, I think, where some of us had first seen the dead people that had been battered on the rocks. But we were able to help.
A special plaque was also unveiled to thank the rescuers. The rescued remain grateful.
You saved us, you healed us, and you made us get to a safe place when we needed to be there.
This little boat, the Pugwash, was put on display. It was used by a 14-year-old who sneaked through a police cordon to join the rescue mission. A rare photo captured him shuttling survivors to Seatoun Wharf. He still wears the same jacket from the day.
It's bloody horrible. Even the next day when the police took me out of school for the day to look for bodies, it was great until we sort of found one.
Survivors and crew travelled from all over the country to attend the anniversary. One still has his ticket, despite his lifeboat being swamped.
That was really terrifying because it was like a mountain coming down here, and a lot of people, I think, died on that one. And after that, I floated until I was picked up by a tug.
An official inquiry cleared the ship's captain and his crew, placing a lot of blame on the weather bomb that struck in the early hours of April the 10th. 40 years sounds a long time ago, but for the survivors and the family of victims, the memories remain sharp and painful for a tragedy they never want repeated. And there's been a couple of interesting features of the celebration this year. It's the size of the turnout is one. Compared to a number of years ago, there's been a big increase in the numbers of people attending, and it's becoming intergenerational, if you like. Many of the survivors are bringing their children to tell them their stories, and their children are interested in finding out and learning more about the Wahine disaster. It's perhaps become a bit like Anzac Day. It seems to be becoming more popular, and probably over the years to come there'll be more history and an even bigger turnout as this big piece of maritime history is digested by more and more New Zealanders.
Stephen, thank you. In the 40 years since the Wahine went down, navigation and ship design have moved on, but the Cook Strait is still the dangerous stretch of water it's always been. Rachel Morton has been finding out whether a similar tragedy could happen again.
John Brown was one of the rescuers the day the Wahine went down, and he went on to be a ferry captain for more than 3 decades after that. He's witnessed firsthand the changes which have been made to ferries over the past 40 years and believes chances of another disaster like the Wahine are slim.
The rules for building ships did change as far as where you vented your underwater spaces. They had to take the vents right up high because that's where all the water came in.
Toll, the company which runs the inter-island ferries, says technology has transformed the industry.
Technology is something that we rely on very, very heavily these days for all sorts of things, whether it's bridge management, whether it's radars, whether it's GPS. There are all sorts of technology that just weren't available 40 years ago.
Despite the dramatic improvements in technology over the past 40 years, there are of course no guarantees there won't be another disaster, but the risk has certainly been minimised.
It shouldn't happen, but then again, nature can throw some shocking things at people, and there's a risk in going to sea, there's a risk in flying, there's a risk in everything we do.
Rough conditions over the Cook Strait are of course not uncommon. 3 News has plenty of pictures in its files showing just how rough conditions can be when ferries have still sailed.
Pretty much any seas over 5 metres these days, we're looking very, very seriously at whether we limit the sailing or actually sail at all.
2 investigations into a seriously rough crossing by the Aratere 2 years ago found that despite it rolling 50 degrees at one stage, injuring 5 people and damaging 45 vehicles, it wasn't in danger. For the passengers though, it seemed quite dangerous enough. Rachel Morton, 3 News.